So, the title for my topic is Sorry Doesn't Cut It. Now, today, there is a segment of our population that has lived off of empty words of apology. Now, I've seen this via social media and through my personal experiences. And usually that's where the story ends, with a simple sorry. Now, there are some people who aren't sorry at all about what I'm about to talk about, and we're not really going to talk about those people. We want to focus on the ones that do say sorry. Now, this is part of the family that I grew up with growing up, just to give a little perspective of what I'm talking about. Now, an example I'm going to give is an example I gave, or that I had with Facebook. Several years ago, I ended up making a post about race, and it was so explosive and agitating that a bunch of people who had never, ever commented on my posts before suddenly felt the need to. Now, these people, of course, were of a lighter skin tone, a little bit lighter than myself. And the things that they had to say were, hey, things were bad in the past, but we're all good now. We're equal. Let's move on. We're sorry. That reality that they seem to have isn't the, in my opinion, objective reality that I think more of us are a bit more privy to. Now, I came to this conclusion based upon the private messages I ended up getting in my inbox from people who didn't feel comfortable enough to actually post for others to see. And the one that meant the most was the one that came from my beautiful and intelligent cousin, Nicole. Now, this is, once again, family, but my cousin Nicole is right next to my uncle wearing glasses. As you can see, she has a darker skin tone than myself. And when I say cousin, I do mean by blood. Now, it meant more coming from her what she had to say about my post because of how she looks and what that represents to the world. And that meant something to me, that at least I was on the right track of what I was confronting when talking to people. And as you can see, this family is a little bit different than maybe you were thinking when I first showed those first two pictures. Now, apologies are nice, but if that's where it ends, what's the point? What does a sorry really do if that's where it ends? And that's the main point that I want to get at, is it's not about the sorry. People don't need the sorry. Sorry doesn't make a difference. People don't want to hear you saying, you know what, no, instead of feeling sorry, instead of thinking sorry, instead of saying sorry, I'm urging everyone to instead actively do something to change the societal narrative that is our American culture. I work in politics, and the reason I got into it was because I wanted to be the change instead of waiting for it. Now that sounds all nice and cute, be the change. Well, I'm going to be a bit more real with you. I feel the need to be that change because my family is now more at risk than they have ever been in my entire life. Now, my perception of family as well, I want to share with you because I think it's a little bit different than perhaps what you have come here today thinking and or feeling. All of this happened on November 8th, this start of my action. November 8th, I ended up sitting down with a friend of mine. His name is Paymon, and he always loved learning about politics through me. He'd always say, Vincent, come on down, let's educate me on what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I was like, all right, cool. So November 8th, we go to a brewery in Chino Hills, and we sit down, grab some beers. And we came there with a very cheerful, uplifting mood of thinking, like, oh, we know how this is going to go. But as time went forward, and we could see states changing to something that we didn't think it was going to be, and we saw an outcome that wasn't what we had hoped it to be, he ended up turning to me with tears in his eyes. And he asked me, Vincent, am I going to be safe? And the reason he asked me that is because he's Iranian. And he felt scared. And it was in that moment that I felt ashamed of everything I had ever done up until this point, because what had I done to make sure something like this couldn't happen? And to be fair, this has happened across the globe. It's not like it's just happening here. You see it in the news. Politicians, certain kinds of politicians being elected based upon fear and hate. But we were here in this country, and I was ashamed of what I had done to this point. And I was ashamed because when he asked me that question and I didn't have the answer for him, I realized that the fear he had, I did not have for myself. Now, as a white enough male, I'm white-ish, at least that's what people see when they meet me. They think I'm white enough. It occurred to me I will be the least damaged by whatever is going to come our way. And I felt in that moment that I wanted to use that white enough voice of mine that seems to be heard and acknowledged more in this country, to make a difference and do something with it. Because of that, and because of my upbringing, I have decided to pursue the world that I am now going into, to make a difference instead of just saying sorry. My family and my upbringing is a bit different than others as well. Growing up, I feel I have a unique perspective, basically, that allows me to not only use my white voice, but in the correct manner, the correct way. And the reason being is of how diverse my family is. Now, when I say family, it continues. I remember growing up and hearing teachers ask me, who's that black man that brought you to school? Who's that Asian lady you called aunt? And even today, people are still confused when I tell them that I'm predominantly, or that I was raised in a predominantly Mexican-American family. I don't fit the mold of what they expect. And it's because of them that have led me to my perspective that I had. I can remember all the parties and birthdays and gatherings that we would have, and the fact that when I would look around, when I think back to my childhood memories, the people that were in those memories were so diverse, and I took that for granted. The people that surrounded me and who I called family, they were not related to me by blood. Most of my family are not. These guys, as an example, I call my brothers. They don't look like me, but I still acknowledge them as such, and I know they do the same for me. The extra thing that led to me finalizing my perception of what race was what I studied in my undergrad at UCLA, anthropology. I don't know if any of you guys know what that is, but you should take a class or read a book, because damn, it's interesting stuff. And the reason why it's interesting is because it's about all of us. It's about humans. Now, while there are some interesting topics such as linguistics or cognitive or archaeological anthropology, the ones that I think are most important when it comes to concepts were physical and cultural. Those aspects of the discipline. The reason being is I learned through it. Scientifically speaking, we are all one race. The human. race. As an example, people like to talk about the differences in the color of skin. Those differences came through natural selection, adaptations over time. If you were at the equator, natural selection and adaptation chooses for your skin to gain melanin so that you're darker because it protects you from direct sun rays. And the opposite is true if you move north into areas like Europe. There's less sunlight, which gives us vitamin D. And trust me, people, you need vitamin D to survive. Well, how did they do it? Over time, they lost the melanin in their skin, which results in a whiter skin tone. It's all science. And I get it. There are differences. Of course there are differences based upon where we came from geographically and the languages we speak, and yes, the way we look. But those differences, I promise you, are quite literally skin deep. There are cultural differences as well. Even within this single nation of the U.S., there's a lot of cultural differences. But culture does not define who we are destined to be. Don't get me wrong. We are all products of culture. But I can tell you this. We make culture. We have more of an ability to shape it and change the perspectives of what it is than anything else. And it is stronger than what culture can do to bind us. Culture, and if you think otherwise, if you think we are bound by culture, well, then you have forfeit your destiny to something that wouldn't even exist if not for us. There is no culture without us. We can change that narrative. And that is what I'm urging. So taking a step back to see a bigger picture. I saw all kinds of different shades of color within my world, and I accepted that as family because they were there for me. That's what family is, the people who choose to be around you. And even then, family is the family that's in your home, the family that's in your neighborhood, the city, the region. Are we not all Californians? Are we not all Americans? Is that not a family? And we are all connected by the single bond that is what makes us one single species. We are one family. And taking one final step back, because I'm really good at doing long-winded stories and getting off topic, my original point is sorry isn't good enough. I can't go forward and tell my family sorry for the pains and prejudices they face without having some kind of shame. No. I love my family, and because I love my family, I will do everything within my power to protect them because of that love. All you need to do is look around you to see that everyone here is a part of that same family. And my message to the people who look a little bit more like me and a little bit brighter, a little bit lighter, hey, we're not doing enough. Sorry is not enough. Put your words into action. Because in this nation, and it's a big one, we have a job to do because we're not doing enough. Take a stand and step forward and start protecting your brothers and sisters, because that's what a family does, is protect each other. Sorry isn't going to cut it anymore. Thank you.